Indian Constitution is a tribute to country's rich heritage and future commitments.
Union of states, respect to languages, respect to religions, respect to traditions, respect to castes. This is all in the Constitution. Every single word that I have said to you is in the Constitution, the foundation of modern India.
We the people, एक आह्वान है, एक प्रतिज्ञा है, एक विश्वास है.
India has emerged as a self-assured nation because of its robust constitution. This is said by none other than the Chief Justice of India, CJI Sanjeev Khanna ji, during the Constitution Day celebrations on November 26th.
हम सभी के लिए बहुत हर्ष और गर्व की बात है कि इस वर्ष देश संविधान को अंगीकार किए जाने की 75वीं वर्षगांठ मना रहा है.
Now he also added that from a nation facing the aftermath of the horrors of partition, widespread illiteracy, poverty, hunger and lack of robust democratic system, resulting in self-doubts, India has now emerged as a nation which is mature and vibrant. And also India has emerged as a vibrant democracy, a geopolitical leader, and it is all on the back of Constitution of India, which has helped India in its transformation.
Who should be in power is left to be determined by the people.
I want all minorities to have an honorable place in the Union of India.
Declaration was that zamindari would be abolished, for which fair compensation would be paid.
There is no dispute whatsoever that the executive should be separated from the judiciary.
I move that the Constitution be passed.
The Chief Justice of India further said that Constitution is a way of life. And this is much more important today while we as a nation are celebrating 75th year of adoption of Constitution in India. The Constitution Day of India, also known as Samvidhan Divas, is celebrated on 26th of November every year to commemorate the adoption of Indian Constitution in the year 1949, which laid the foundation of India as a secular and democratic country. Now this day highlights the values of justice, fraternity, equality and liberty which were enshrined in our constitution. And as we celebrate this day, we are going to uncover the significance and importance of the legacy of Indian Constitution in our country. Hello, my name is Preetpal Singh, and today our discussion would center around India's Constitution and Constitution Day of India. Now, Tom Ginsburg, who's a professor at University of Chicago, who has studied over 200 constitutions from all across the world, which were adopted after the year 1789, says that the average lifespan of a constitution in the overall world is 17 years. Now, it is a tribute to our forefathers that the draft with amendments which they had prepared has lasted 75 long years. In contrast, Sri Lanka has replaced its constitution thrice, Pakistan has replaced its constitution 6 times, and Nepal has replaced its constitution 5 times. Undoubtedly, there is something special about the second oldest constitution of the world which we can be justifiably proud of. It is therefore the time to look back at the origin of this precious and invaluable document, which continues to be the basis of functioning of such a large democracy as India. Now, on May 2015, the Union Cabinet announced that November 26th would be celebrated as Constitution Day to promote constitutional values amongst citizens of our country. Now, this year also marked the 125th birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, who was the chairman of the drafting committee of the Constitution. Alongside Dr. Ambedkar, there were several other members like K.M. Munshi, Muhammad Sadullah, A. Krishnaswamy Iyer, and also some other committee members as well. Now, the Constituent Assembly, the body responsible for drafting the Constitution of India, had its first session on December 9th, 1946. It was attended by 207 members, and initially the assembly had close to 389 members. But after India got partition and it was divided between India and Pakistan, it was reduced to 299 members. Now, the Constituent Assembly took 3 whole years to draft the Constitution and spending more than 114 days considering the content of the draft alone. Also, a range of resources were consulted for preparing this draft, including constitution of different other countries, and eventually suitable amendments were also made to adapt to the provisions to what India needed at that particular point of time. Now, this drafting committee of constitution, this committee also had an invaluable assistance of B.N. Rao as the constitutional advisor and also S.N. Mukherjee as the chief draftsman of the constitution. And as just a fortnight earlier, India has attained the freedom, and Section 8 of Independence Act 1947, it enabled the Constituent Assembly to perform two prominent functions. First, to draft the new constitution of independent India, and second, to function as federal legislature as well. And it was all under the Government of India Act 1935. And it is supremely ironic that the 1935 Act, which was condemned by the then political parties, especially the National Congress, in 1936, it became the basis of setting up of our constitution. Now, from this Government of India Act 1935, we borrowed a lot of things. First is bicameralism, that is upper and lower houses at the center and 6 provinces alongside the direct elections to these chambers. Also, at that point of time, it was the longest piece of legislation which was passed in the British Parliament. And eventually, on 13th of December 1946, the first Prime Minister of Independent India, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, moved the Objectives Resolution. Now, this was later adopted as preamble on January 22nd, 1947 to encapsulate the basic philosophy of our constitution. Now, if we give a closer look to preamble of our constitution, it encapsulates deep-rooted tenets of democracy in India. And the preamble reads as follows. It says, "We, the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India into a sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic republic, and to secure to its citizens justice, socio-economic and political, liberty of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship, equality of status and opportunity to promote among them all, and also fraternity, assuring the dignity of the individuals and the unity and integrity of the whole nation." Now, if you read the text of the preamble, you will see a lot of noteworthy elements. Sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, republic, and there were values of justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, which were being at the core of India's constitutional philosophy. And the last line read as follows, that in our Constituent Assembly, the 26th of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this constitution. Now, the drafting committee, which was obviously chaired by Dr. Ambedkar, was one among the 17 committees of the Constituent Assembly, and their task was to prepare the draft constitution. Out of the 7,600 amendments which were tabled, the committee, they removed around 24 amendments altogether while debating and deliberating the Constitution of India. And finally, the last session of the Constituent Assembly ended on November 26, 1949, when the Constitution was adopted. And 2 months later, on January 26, 1950, it came into effect, which is why we celebrate Republic Day on that particular date. And this happened after 284 members signed on it. Now, the date of January 26 was chosen as the National Congress Purna Swaraj resolution was declared on this day in the year 1930. So on the exact day, we now celebrate Republic Day. Now, since we know that Constitution of India is a very, very important and integral part of our whole country and the whole philosophy of our country, we must understand Constitution in a great bit of detail. See, first of all, the Constitution of India is the lengthiest constitution written in the whole world. So it is the lengthiest written constitution. It is very comprehensive, it is elaborate and a very detailed document. Now, there are different elements of the Constitution which we borrowed from different places. For example, from Government of India Act 1935, we borrowed the federal structure, the Office of Governor, Judiciary, Public Service Commission, emergency provisions, administrative details and some other parts. From British Constitution, we borrowed parliamentary government, rule of law, legislative procedure, single citizenship, cabinet system, writs, parliamentary privileges, bicameralism as well. From US Constitution also we borrowed some things like fundamental rights, like independence of judiciary, judicial review, impeachment of president, removal of Supreme Court and High Court judges, and the post of vice president as well. Now, the original constitution, it contained a preamble, 395 articles which were divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. And over the last few years, the Constitution of India has undergone several amendments. One of the amendment in 1976, through the 42nd Amendment Act, it introduced Article 51A, listing down 10 duties inspired by India's traditions and global practices. And eventually an 11th duty was added in the year 2002. We call them now as fundamental duties. And as of September 2024, there have been close to 106 amendments of our Indian Constitution since it was first enacted in 1950. The last one was to reserve 1/3 of the seats in Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies and Delhi Assembly for women for a period of 15 years after coming into effect. And this was the 106th constitutional amendment. Now, if you see Indian constitution closely, it is neither rigid nor flexible. It is a blend of both. It is rigid and flexible at the same point of time. Our constitution is a synthesis of both. If you see Article 368, it provides for two types of amendments in our constitution. Some provisions can be amended by a special majority of the parliament, that is 2/3 of the members or 2/3 majority of members of each house should be present and voting, and a majority of total membership of the house. So a constitution can be amended in this way, special majority. And there is one more way, some provisions can be amended by a special majority of the parliament and with the ratification of half of total states. So it's not very easy to amend our constitution as well, but there are some provisions which can be amended by just a simple majority in the parliament in a manner of an ordinary legislative procedure. And these amendments, they are not included under Article 368 of our constitution. So it shows us that Indian constitution is a mix of flexibility and rigidity. So it's a synthesis of both. Now there is a very important part, that is part 3 of our Indian constitution, which guarantees fundamental rights to our citizens. It includes right to equality under Article 14 to Article 18. It includes right to freedom under Article 19 to 22. It includes right against exploitation, Article 23-24. Right to freedom of religious activities or religion, Article 25 to 28. And cultural and educational rights under Article 29 to 30. And the last one is the right to constitutional remedies under Article 32. Now these fundamental rights, they are meant for promoting the ideal of political democracy. They operate with certain limitations, but they also act as limitations against the tyranny of the executive and arbitrary laws of the legislature. Also, they are justiciable in nature. That is, they are enforceable by the courts for their violation. And also the aggrieved person, they can directly go to the Honorable Supreme Court of India, which can issue writs of habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari or quo warranto for the restoration of fundamental rights of citizens of our country. Also, one more crucial thing is there. The Constitution of India, it stands for a secular state. Hence, it does not uphold any particular religion as the official religion of the state. And also the Indian Constitution encompasses a universal adult franchisee model on the basis of which any adult above the age of 18 is having the right to vote in our country. And it is the basis of Lok Sabha and state legislative elections in our country. This voting age was reduced to 18 years from 21 years in the year 1989 by the 61st Constitutional Amendment Act of 1988. And now, since we have a fair bit of understanding about India's constitution, it has been criticized from several quarters as well. Many criticize Indian constitution as a borrowed constitution, where a lot of tenets have been exactly copied and borrowed from different countries. Many say that it is a carbon copy of 1935 Act, which is of course not false to great extent. Also, many say that it is an un-Gandhian constitution, that is, the principle of Gandhiji were not taken into consideration while framing this constitution. This is one criticism put forward by experts. Many say that it is elephantized size, that it is very, very big and very difficult to understand. And the last people say that it is a paradise of lawyers. That means many things in our Indian constitution, they are quite complex, which only a lawyer could understand and the common layman is not able to understand. However, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has very rightly said that the constitution is not a mere lawyer's document, it is a vehicle of life, and its spirit is always the spirit of age. Which is why, to celebrate the values enshrined in our constitution, we have started the celebrations of Constitution Day since the year 2015. This Constitution Day is very significant because it is an instrument for honoring our leaders. This day honors the members of the Constituent Assembly and the drafting committee who, under the guidance of Dr. Ambedkar, drafted this historical document. Also, it helps us in upholding the value of fundamental rights, of principles and values in BPSP, and which frame the bedrock of Constitution in India. And definitely the Samvidhan Day, Samvidhan Divas, is very important to spread awareness about this historical day and encourage the citizens to understand their rights and their duties also. By celebrating this, the youth of the country will get inspired about the Constitution, its values, and working towards building a just and equitable society. See, the people of India could not have received a better gift at the beginning of their journey as an independent nation. Independence, as Dr. Ambedkar said in concluding his memorable speech, is no doubt a matter of joy. But let us not forget that independence has thrown great responsibilities to us. By independence, we have lost the excuse of blaming the British for anything going wrong in our country. If hereafter things go wrong, we will have nobody to blame except ourselves. Now 75 years later, let us reduce the number of things which we need to blame us for and let the Constitution show us the way. All these lines were said by none other than Shashi Tharoor. And with this, we end today's session. I hope you got inspired from this session and it was valuable in your learning insights. Now, if you want a separate video on secular and socialism philosophy of our preamble and the debate around this, do let me know in the comment section. We'll be very happy to make a separate video on that issue as well. Do let me know what are your views surrounding this video and what do you think how we need to celebrate Constitution Day of our country. All the very best and have a beautiful day. Jai Hind.